Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
From 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR, this is Lake Effect. I'm Joy Powers. Today on Indigenous Peoples Day, we'll hear the story of a Native American boarding school survivor from Wisconsin. Then on Capital Notes, we'll talk about the government shutdown's implications for Wisconsin.
For the general public, not a whole lot of pain just yet, and so for the two sides, it's kind of, we're just trucking along right now, trying to see who's going to blink in this whole thing.
Plus, we'll begin a week-long tour of Milwaukee-area Yemeni coffee shops.
It's a region that has a high altitude. It's actually better for the bean, so it gives it that acidity wine taste to the bean.
And we'll hear some new songs from local musicians in this month's Milwaukee Music Roundup. All of that is coming up on Lake Effect. This is Lake Effect from 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Joy Powers, and thank you so much for joining us. In the 19th and 20th centuries, thousands of Native American children were sent to schools run by the federal government and churches. Many suffered abuse at the schools, where the goal was to erase indigenous cultures, starting with the community's children. On this Indigenous Peoples Day, we have the story of a Wisconsin survivor of one of these schools. His name is Dewey Shenandoah. When he was a child on the Menominee Reservation, he went to a Catholic school called St. Anthony's. Dewey shares his story and what it took to heal with WUWM reporter Jimmy Gutierrez and Eric Vaughn fellow Maria Peralta Ariano.
Maria.
Yes, here we go.
We learned some Wisconsin history together last month.
Ooh, I hope you're talking about Dewey.
I'll behave. I'll behave.
Who could forget Dewey Shenandoah? So we did talk for a while, but that was because this man has lived 79 years and has seen a lot, both the good and the bad.
Yeah, including his experiences with what he called the Kill the Indian, Save the Man program, our state's brutal history with Indian boarding schools, which we found out Dewey was sent to in the first grade.
It was like a mixture of science, math, English, geography, and I was ready to excel because, hey, man, my mother, she didn't raise no fool, man. She instructed me, you know what I mean? So it's like I had this insatiable desire to compete academically at that very early age. And here's the real big but. But that world changed at 7 years of age with that first beating that I got. That program, to Kill the Indian, Save the Man, that was designed to program us as indigenous people to fail in every aspect, every facet of society that we live in. And to some, it worked.
The wild thing is that these schools were everywhere for over 150 years in Wisconsin. The goal was clear: convert quote-unquote savages starting when they were kids. Indigenous cultures didn't fit into white society at the time, so they tried to erase it by any means necessary. Today, though, we know that knowing your history matters, dedicating days to recognize atrocities matter, and the stories of those who lived it and experienced it matters, because not all history is passed down.
When I grew up on a Menominee Reservation, we lived in the forest in northern Wisconsin, and the place was just simply beautiful. The whole show, the animals, the trees, the sunshine every day, and I got to enjoy that.
It sounds like a magical childhood, some of it at least, because something that Dewey was very clear on was that growing up on the reservation also meant growing up in abject poverty.
People would help each other out with deer meat, bear meat, animal stuff. And some had the foresight to see that other people were in need, so it was shared. The foods were shared amongst the people.
He was the youngest. He had an older brother and sister. His dad was a musician. He says his mom was compassionate and sensitive to tribal culture. But when he was small, maybe 6 years old, they divorced. which devastated his sister at the time.
She was going through the impact of the divorce of my mother and my father, and she reacted in a way that they didn't deem appropriate. So the state stepped in. And the last thing I remember was I walked up partway to the stairs up to the first floor, and I looked around the corner and I could see my sister. She had her hands in the doorway, and the white woman, I say white woman with respect, she was pulling her by the hair. That was the last I saw of my sister, Doris. And what they did, they took her to Green Bay here, and they put her in an orphanage, Catholic orphanage here in Green Bay, which probably ain't in existence no more. And they did shock therapy on her, electroshock therapy, and it completely changed her.
Dude, that tape is so hard to hear.
What made it worse was that at this time, his sister was also in boarding school. I can imagine that she lost any peaceful place in her life to go. Not at school and not at home. She had no safe space. For Dewey, he was entering first grade and just about to head off to boarding school himself.
I walked in the building for the first time that time, and I remember seeing a lot of books on the shelves. And it was like a typical classroom type setup with desks, old-time wooden desks. And I walked in and I sat down. I looked on the wall, and there was the alphabet, the entire alphabet. And I said, wow, man, I just wonder if I can learn that. You know, and I had confidence that I can. I told myself, yeah, you can learn that, plus a whole bunch of other stuff, you know.
Yeah, I guess I didn't expect him to take to the setting so much.
He really did, but there was one problem. The nuns. He says he witnessed their violence towards the kids really early on. There was even a nun that the kids nicknamed Bruiser.
Wherein when I would hear this negative energy coming out of her, I would have to tell myself, turn off the volume. In my mind, there's an up and down button. It's on and off, okay? And what do I do when it's off? I take a look at the wall. I study the the alphabet. That's the way I defended myself.
It's wild that even at this early age, he had his own coping techniques.
Then she'd get her revenge again, you know what I mean? I remember sitting there looking right at her, man, and looking at the punch coming at me. Didn't move me at all. Absorbed the punch, fell down, whatever, got back up, sat right back down, more peaceful than ever.
In second grade, this was all still going on, so some of the students decided they had enough.
My buddy in the back of the room, he opened up the window, and 5 or 6 of us dove out the window, scratched ourselves up, bleeding and stuff, and we ran away. And we ran into the forest, ran to our old trail, and we would meet there. We were all beat up. Some of these guys were blood all over the place, you know what I mean? And then would meet there, and then would sit around and would talk about what happened and how we felt as a form of healing.
Again, this picture is incredible and so tragic that they found these ways to process going through all of this at such a young age. He did say that his Menominee practices had a lot to do with saving him at this time too, but still.
That was his life until high school, just trying to survive every day as a child. He wants to give credit where credit is due, though, because he says none of this would be possible without 3 entities: the federal government, the tribe, and the Archdiocese of Green Bay. They all were complicit in the abuse.
He was very clear on that. All right, so he gets out of boarding school, thankfully, and he starts high school in Shawano, Wisconsin, and he experiences a ton of racism. And this is where he goes to his guidance counselor for guidance.
And I was so sick of it by then. I walked in the counselor's room one day and I says, Mr. Counselor, I have an idea that I have to tell you about. And he says, what's that? I told him, I says, I'm going to be 17 years old in so many months. After that, I'm out of here. I don't want nothing to do with school, education, indoctrination, nothing. And he says, well, okay. You would think that a counselor would counsel somebody who was saying something like that, you know, and try not persuade him. But that's the level of racism that I had to deal with at that time.
Dewey struggled for a while after dropping out. First, he says he moved around the state. Then he joined the Air Force. Even tried his best to assimilate into white culture that surrounded him.
Yeah, it feels like that time was really important for him just to kind of like experience the world and find himself, which ultimately led him back into tribal teachings. And that's kind of where everything changed because he found this mentor, an elder he worked with who led these ceremonies.
At that age of 30, he told me one day, he says, I want you to sit down on the side of me, sit next to me. He says, you can learn what you want from the ceremonies. Very brilliant, simplistic old man. I didn't know I was going to become his assistant. That blew me away, man. It blew me away completely. He spoke in a ceremony one time in front of the people. He says, if I'm not here, he says, this man here will slide over into my chair.
This man, these ceremonies really changed Dewey's life. They led him back to what was important to him.
I should conclude with that part of that because that is something that not too many people can understand why I talk about my total relief from Christianity and from Catholicism was by my acceptance of these customs and traditions of my people. And it worked.
What he's talking about here is forgiveness. Forgiveness is what opened up his path to healing from his past experiences. He started living a new life, a healthier life. He started competing in track events, traveling across the state. He rode his bike across the country. He still rides every single day. He even ran for human rights.
He was running everywhere all the time. I think it's interesting because on one of those runs, it led him to a very unexpected place.
A gravesite next to the Catholic Church on the reservation. Matter of fact, the gravesite was in the back of the church, and my trail was right by the gravesites.
Okay, so basically he says his ancestors directed him to an unmarked gravesite at St. Michael's Church in Kashina.
They were trying to get out of the hole, and they said, Dewey, we need your help. We can't get out of this hole. We need you to help us. And that was like going through my mind. And I didn't know what to think at the moment, so I took my tobacco, my offering, and I put it on the ground. I says, okay, I will. I'll help you.
There was a whole investigation, which a local station in Green Bay reported on. And while the church said they wanted to be of assistance, they didn't apologize. But Dewey says he was there when Bishop Ricken of the church acknowledged the trauma caused by the church.
He got up and spoke in front of the people in the church, and he says, after consideration of what some tribal members mentioned to me, he says, we're going to have a little ceremony out in the back of the church for those people. He came through, Jimmy. The bishop came through for me, Maria. He said he did what he said he was going to do.
It's estimated that nearly 1,000 kids died in Indian boarding schools all over the nation. The truth is, though, we don't know the exact numbers of how many children actually suffered at these schools. The numbers are probably much larger. Record keeping wasn't the best, and there really was no incentive to do so.
Mm-hmm.
At least 14 of these schools were here in Wisconsin, working to kill the Indian and save the man. Dewey says he forgave the church, but still, he had someone else to forgive. His parents.
I had some anger at him one time because I wasn't getting the proper protection from these things that were going on. I had some anger over that. I found out that they themselves went through the Kill the Indian, Save the Man program when they were younger in their lives. And Jimmy, I cried. I cried over that. Everybody in my family was impacted in a real profound way that created sibling rivalry, confusion, every aberration of the psychological mindset that we had at that time was impacted by Kill the Indian, Save the Man. So we had a lot of work to do between ourselves in order for us to love. That's something that was taken from my family.
All right, if we're just going to go down a checklist with all this history. So Governor Evers has apologized for the role Wisconsin had in these schools. At the time, then President Biden apologized for the role the U.S. government had in the schools. The Department of Interior even started a 3-year investigation into the impact of these schools.
There have been oral history projects making sure these stories are documented.
I mean, that's kind of how we found out about Dewey, and that's a bit of the work we're doing here.
And also, a while back, the UN made a declaration affirming the equal rights of Indigenous people.
There's a lot to say about genocide. I don't like thinking about genocide, but I have to, because I have to know how to prevent it. The declaration that the United Nations made in the recent years protects indigenous rights. To what degree, I don't know. Just the knowledge of the United Nations having this document in place gives me great hope, gives me a whole lot of hope. Why? Because we need people in the world to know that we are a sovereign nation, and we're a sovereign nation from day one.
When we met Dewey, he rode his bike down to see us. And for his age, I was blown away by how active he was.
I mean, it was a hot day, and he wasn't out of breath or anything. He was ready to go. It was pretty wild.
That man has no stops. But aside from just how physically healthy he is, he's also very spiritually healthy.
He's been through it, and he's come out the other side. I think what's undeniable, too, talking with him and listening to him, is that he clearly appreciates all of it.
Yeah, the good and the bad.
And if I can just mention that after I do my morning offering, it's like the Spirit tells me, okay, Dewey, I got your tobacco. Now, go right ahead. Go enjoy your day. Go on, ride your bike. You know what I mean? That satisfied feeling of having been given the permission to live from day to day to day. You know, and that's all I take, a day at a time, man, you know. And it works. It works real good, you know. Love every minute of it, you know.
That was Wisconsin residential school survivor Dewey Shenandoah. He spoke with WUWM reporter Jimmy Gutierrez and Eric Vaughn fellow Maria Peralta Ariano.
This is Capital Notes from Milwaukee's NPR. I'm Maayan Silver, speaking with J.R. Ross. He's editor of WisPolitics.com. Hey there, J.R. Thanks for joining me.
No, thanks for having me.
All right, first, let's talk about the government shutdown. Republicans currently control both chambers of Congress, but in the Senate, they're short of the 60 votes needed to pass a spending bill that funds the government. That gives Democrats some negotiating power to get the things they want, like reversing cuts to Medicaid and renewing Affordable Care Act tax credits. Republicans and Democrats couldn't agree to pass a bill funding government services just yet into October and beyond. Is there an end in sight?
Good question. There's a little bit of pressure that's coming up in the coming days because there is a paycheck due to members of the military on the 15th. So that's moving some things out there. What's kind of interesting is how both sides are dug in and both sides see a political upside to this. Republicans continue to slam Democrats that they're the ones who caused the shutdown. They're being unreasonable. They won't, vote for this clean, quote unquote, continuing resolution. It's all their fault. Democrats keep hitting Republicans on the fact that there's not going to be, or they haven't been engaging in discussion about extending subsidies for those who get their health care through the Affordable Care Act, through the exchanges, that it's Republicans who are trying to cut people off from these benefits. They both see an upside. So there's not real pain just yet that the American people are feeling. Now, obviously, federal workers, different story. But for the general public, not a whole lot of pain just yet. And so for the two sides, it's kind of, we're just trucking along right now, trying to see who's going to blink in this whole thing.
So the last time the federal government shut down was in late 2018, early 2019 during President Trump's first term. It lasted 35 days. It was the longest in history. How did that ultimately impact people in Wisconsin?
They were impacted, parks closed, if I remember correctly, things like that. There are inconveniences. But, again, the biggest impact seems to be on, those who run federal programs, for example, women and WIC, women and children, infants and children. There's some talk about those benefits running out right now. There are issues like that. So there's an impact for people, but for a lot of folks, they don't feel a real big crush. So it's going to be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months. That's the big question. At what point does this thing ease up? And, are people made whole? Do federal workers, for example, get back pay for the days that they were furloughed? Are those who run federal programs, are they made whole because they get the benefits that were coming to them. So we'll see how this thing plays out. It's going to take a little while yet, possibly. I'm not sure. I don't predict anything in politics. We won't say when it's going to end. But the question is, when it's over, how do they take care of folks? And is there any kind of lasting imprint on the general public about how this thing played out?
Okay, so moving on to the election process in the state, heading into the 2026 elections. So Wisconsin receives an average of more than 200 online voter registrations per day. That's according to the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Can you tell us what's going on in litigation before the Waukesha Circuit Court about checking the citizenship status of those voters that are registering online? What's going on with that?
So there are a couple of conservatives who sued, arguing that, in Wisconsin, you have to be a citizen to vote, right? There's a constitutional amendment approved last fall that only citizens can vote in a state or local election. They're arguing that there is a responsibility, essentially, for the Elections Commission and the Department of Transportation to work together to make sure there are nobody on the voter rolls who's not a citizen, and that going forward, those who register to vote have to prove their citizenship. A Waukesha County judge issued a ruling saying, yes, there has to be a verification process, and yes, DOT and Elections Commission, you have to work together to go through everybody in the voter rolls now and make sure there's nobody there who shouldn't be there. Now, there are a number of issues going on. One, Elections Commission says, hey, this is going to be a huge lift. Really, the first point is they don't think that that requirement's in state law. Now, the judge is basically taking the requirement that you be a citizen to vote and saying there is a responsibility that I'm interpreting state law for you to do this. But there's no actual statute that says Elections Commission and DOT, you shall coordinate to make sure that there's nobody on the rolls who shouldn't be because they're not a citizen. So there's that issue going on. The judge has placed a piece of his ruling on hold because the State Department of Justice, which represents Elections Commission, is going to appeal. It says you can still register to vote without proving citizenship, but he still wants the Elections Commission and DOT and the plaintiffs to be consulting about how do you go about checking the roll of these 3.6 million people, which he wants done by the next statewide election, which is the February primary for the spring races. So there's a lot going on. There's going to be another hearing on October 31st, I believe. This is not going to be settled at the Waukesha County Circuit Court level. This is going to work its way up the appeals court, the Supreme Court eventually. In talking to legal experts, I get the impression they feel like at some point, if this gets to the state Supreme Court, the decision won't stand up, that there'll be reversal. But we're a long ways away from that. So right now the question is, what's the standard going to be, and will it be in place? Will we put on hold as we work our way through the appellate process?
Interesting. Okay. You're tuned into Capitol Notes. I'm WUWM's Maayan Silver, speaking with J.R. Ross, editor of WisPolitics.com, and looking into a 2026 midterms check-in. As long as we're talking about those elections, Democrat Josh Kaul is running for re-election as Attorney General. GOP Congressman Tom Tiffany has announced his run for governor, and he's raised $1 million already. Republican Robin Vos, the state's longest-serving assembly speaker, says he's considering not running for re-election next year. Can you tell us about those highlights from recent weeks?
Sure, we'll go backwards. So Robin Vos, the perception was he wasn't going to run for election in 2024, but then people tried to recall him early in that year. If you recall, he didn't want to let those folks think they chased him out of office, so he ran again to say, hey, I'm not going anywhere because of you guys. So there's been a perception all session that this is probably going to be it for Robin. He hasn't said for sure. He said he'll make a decision by January, but it's been kind of an open factor in the Capitol or fact that there's probably going to be a time where Robin Vos leaves, and people kind of guess it's going to be after the session. Now, he hasn't said it for sure. There's still a chance he'll run again, but I think most folks that are putting their bets in the pool think he's not going to run. Tiffany raised $1 million.
Well, wait, about Robin Vos, what do you think would happen in that power vacuum situation? Have you kind of started thinking about that?
Tyler August is the majority leader. He has basically been speaker in waiting for a while. Now, this all assumes Republicans continue to control the assembly, right? If they lose control, they're not speaker anymore. But if Republicans have a majority after 2026, and if Robin Vos is not there, there's been a succession plan that Tyler August will work his way up. He's from the Lake Geneva area. He's been taking a more prominent role with the leadership and talking at news conferences and raising money, doing all the things you do as speaker. So there's an expectation that it would go toward, he'd be the one who'd step up if Robin were to not seek re-election in 2026.
Gotcha. Okay, so moving on to the Tom Tiffany information.
Yeah. So he's raised $1 million. Good number to start, because there's one big question about Tom has been, can he raise the money to be successful? He's not been a strong fundraiser in his time in Congress. He raised $1.2 million over a 2-year period in 23 and 24 for his last bid, which isn't really, not even that top half of the members of our congressional delegation. Now, he'll argue that he's not in a competitive seat. He doesn't need to raise a lot of money because of that. But there's just a kind of persistent question. Is he going to raise enough money? Right now, it's just him and Josh Schoeman. Bill Berrien dropped out a few weeks ago. So this is kind of Tom's opportunity now to really take over and say, hey, I'm going to raise the money needed to prove that I'm the one you should trust. They've got reports due in January. If he raises enough between now and then, maybe it kind of quiets some of that chatter. But as long as there's this perception that Tiffany's going to struggle on a couple of fronts, including connecting with suburban Milwaukee voters, there's been chatter about an alternative. Tommy Thompson has said he might run. People I've talked to don't think Tommy would actually run, but it's a sign he's not sure that there's the right person in the field yet. You're going to keep hearing whispers about an Eric Hovde or Tim Michaels or Matt Newman, all businessmen. 2 of them have run before for statewide office because there's just people are looking for an alternative. So it's kind of incumbent upon Tiffany to seize this moment and say, no, I'm the one. Like, I'm going to raise the money. I've got the infrastructure. I can appeal these voters. I'm the one you should be backing, and let's get on board board this train and go.
And at the same time, there were some whispers that Democrat Josh Kaul, who is Attorney General now, head of the Wisconsin Department of Justice, would potentially be throwing his hat in the race for governor. But he announced that he's going to be seeking re-election as Attorney General. What does that all mean?
Basically, he didn't really burn for the job of being governor. I mean, I know that might sound somewhat odd to some people who think that, being governor is the goal for everybody, but it isn't. And Josh Kaul, he said after his announcement that he had concerns, one, about his family. He's got young kids. And 2, who'd be the Attorney General. He's started a number of lawsuits against the Trump administration. He wants to continue those. And again, in talking to people around Madison, the vibe was that Josh didn't seem in his conversations to really want to do what you need to do to be governor. He didn't really seem to have that kind of they call it the fire in the belly to run for the office. He seemed more like he wants to be Attorney General. And, there's in some ways there's nothing wrong with that. Not everybody wants to climb the ladder, if you will, politically. So with him not getting in, though, he was going to be probably a front runner. Well, now Mandela Barnes, former lieutenant governor, he's looking at running. If he gets in, will he be the front runner because he ran for U.S. Senate a few years ago and raised a bunch of money? Sarah Rodriguez, lieutenant governor, she announced recently that she has raised $2.5 million for this race. Now, of that money, $400,000 is from her own campaign. $2.1 million, she says, are donors who say, I'm going to give money to groups that support you to help your campaign. She can't control that spending. They're just pledges right now, but if that money comes to fruition, plus the Democratic Lieutenant Governor Association has pledged to spend $2 million on her behalf, you add it all, that's $4.5 million. That's a lot of money in a primary. Will it all come together? We'll see. But right now we're in this window of the field is still kind of shaking out for Democrats. Raising money is going to be key. We'll see in January who raised the most, and we're going to see before too long who's the most serious because they have the resources or the support from others to really run a full-fledged campaign.
All right. Thanks for this background, JR, and thank you, as always, for joining me on Capitol Notes.
Anytime.
Did you know you can also listen to Lake Effect as a podcast? Search for Lake Effect wherever you get your podcasts to download and listen on demand. Later in the show, we'll listen to some of the best new music from local bands in this month's Milwaukee Music Roundup. But first, several Yemeni coffee shops have popped up in the Milwaukee area in recent years. We'll learn what makes them special next on Lake Effect. on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. You're listening to Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Joy Powers. Milwaukee is a hotspot for Yemeni coffee shops. They sell coffee made from beans grown in Yemen and often use traditional Yemeni coffee recipes. And they're usually open much later than other coffee shops. WUWM's Eddie Morales and Maiyan Silver are drinking their way through several Milwaukee spots, and they have this report.
Okay, so Eddie, it's 8:30 in the morning. We're located on the east side of Milwaukee. This, where we're sitting right now, is a very new spot called Haraz Coffee. What's going on in your head?
That I could really use some coffee, so I'm glad I'm here. And I'm kind of recent into getting into coffee, so I'm looking forward to try it out.
And just for the record, neither of us are morning people, is that correct?
Correct. Haraz Coffee House is on the corner of Oakland and Locust near UWM. It's been around since March, part of the Yemeni coffee shop boom that began last year in Milwaukee.
My name is Mahdi Hassan. I'm the owner of Haraz Coffee on Oakland.
Hassan is a third-generation Palestinian. He opened Haraz to get more of a social scene going on near the UWM campus.
I actually wanted to bring hopefully something to the east side where, we're pretty much available to people from 7 in the morning till midnight time.
So Haraz has floor-to-ceiling windows.
Yeah, the seating area is nice and cozy. It's got small tables and wicker seats.
One wall has this really colorful mural of a coffee farmer. It shows him working in the coffee fields in the mountains. That really gave us a hint about what's so special about Yemeni coffee.
Here's what Hassan tells us.
It's a region that has a high altitude. It's actually better for the bean, so it gives it that acidity wine taste to the bean. So the region itself helps the beans actually grow better, and it has like a unique taste to it compared to the other beans.
Turns out, Yemen is one of the oldest coffee regions in the world.
I did not know that, Eddie.
Yeah, it's where one of the world's most popular coffee beans, Arabica coffee, were first cultivated. Farmers in Yemen use a technique where they actually sun-dry the beans. Hassan told us that Haraz takes those coffee beans and makes all kinds of drinks and treats.
Okay, so now for the tasting portion of this story. We had to ask Hassan for advice on what to order, and he suggested his most popular drink with Middle Easterners.
Turkish coffee, that's one thing that most Middle Easterns actually drink.
Interesting, Turkish coffee.
Because actually we're using the Yemeni beans for the Turkish coffee, actually.
So we learned how to make Turkish coffee, right, Maiyan?
Yeah, basically you boil very finely ground coffee powder with water in a special pot. You pour the coffee into small cups and sip it really slowly. You leave the coffee grounds at the bottom, and Hassan says it's really different from milky espresso drinks like lattes.
That's what I like about it, is just, I don't want to say because lattes are made pretty fresh, but they get cold a little too quickly, depending on like if you're on the move or not. But with traditional drinks, literally the cup will be boiling hot for hours and hours.
Nice. So that encourages sitting around, playing a game of backgammon, relaxing.
Exactly. And again, you could be sipping on it for hours, doing other things as well.
Hassan gives us a copper tray with designs on it, a little copper coffee pot, and 2 copper cups. It's a mix of medium roast and dark roast.
Eddie, you have one request about coffees, right?
I like things to taste as sweet as possible, but without being very sugary, so I've kind of switched from like using real sugar to like stevia and stuff lately at home, but I'm open to like a little bit of sugar though, just to make it taste sweet.
Okay, sure.
So when Hassan brings out the Turkish coffee, we have a small coffee conflict.
Yeah, it traditionally comes with no sugar, but some people like to add it with sugar. I personally like to drink it with a little bit of sugar. So
I would like a lot of sugar.
Yeah. Eddie might disagree now.
Back in the sugar.
Luckily for you, Eddie, you can set the sugar levels yourself.
Yep, I put a little bit in there.
So here we are trying it with the little copper cups, taking little sips.
Very hot. But it's like, I get that, like sipping on it over a long period of time. It's like,
It's really nice. Wow, so is there cardamom in here? I knew it. There's cardamom. Do you taste that spice?
I taste the spice. Especially because I'm newer to coffee drinking in general, but like I'm so bad at like describing what I'm tasting. So this is an experiment for me too. But yeah, I taste the spice for sure.
So in addition to the coffee, we just had to try the desserts. Yemeni coffee houses are totally known for their sweets. The display case is full of cakes like cheesecake or chocolate cake cups.
Hassan tells us about one signature pastry. It's usually shaped like a triangle.
So bee bites is a traditionally bread, basically, that's actually filled with cream cheese, and it's drizzled with honey. It's really known in Yemen. In Arabic, it's called khalit al-nahel, which is it's like the
Honeycomb. No?
No.
I'm wrong.
Honeycomb, bee bites, that's what most, like each place uses a different term, but they're all pretty much like they're actually pretty much the same bread. But each store likes to give it a differently, but in Arabic it's called khalit al-nahal, which is, I'm trying to think of the best translation. Maybe, yeah, honeycomb I think would be the best translation, literally.
Score one for my Arabic. Or maybe just my luck.
It's all good.
Haraz makes bee bites, Turkish coffee, and many more treats on site, including the Adani tea. That's black tea, traditionally flavored with cardamom, nutmeg, cinnamon, and cloves.
Yeah, you can get those traditional drinks and also stuff you'd expect from any espresso bar.
I'm Eddie Morales.
And I'm Maayan Silver.
For 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
Maayan and Eddie will continue their tour of Milwaukee's Yemeni coffee shops throughout the week on Lake Effect. Coming up, we'll hear new tracks from some local bands in this month's Milwaukee Music Roundup. That's next on Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. This is Lake Effect on 89.7 WUWM. I'm Joy Powers. As the world gets more chaotic, it often seems like art gets a bit better. That's certainly true here in Wisconsin, where local musicians are putting out some great new music. Every month, Milwaukee Records' Matt Wild shares a few of the best new songs from local artists for the Milwaukee Music Roundup. This month, the songs range from otherworldly to historical and reflections on the world we see today. Matt Wild, as always, thank you for joining me here on Lake Effect.
Hello, thank you for having me once again.
So this first song comes from truly a veteran Milwaukee musician. I feel like sometimes we say that and we mean they've been on the scene for 5 years. This guy has been the Milwaukee music scene.
We're talking, 30, 40 years or something like that. We are talking about the great Paul Seabar, who has just put out a new record, his first record in a number of years, and it is self-titled. It is just called Paul Seabar, which I find very interesting. A very, very veteran musician putting out a self-titled album at this point in his career. Paul, of course, a Milwaukee music legend for his work in groups like the R&B Cadets, Tomorrow Sound, the Milwaukeeans, many other things over the years. He's had his own radio show on WMSE for 40-some years, 25, 30, 40 years, and he's just one of these like ambassadors of great kind of old school R&B, blues, jazz. that kind of music, very New Orleans kind of stuff. And he has this new record out, and it is fantastic. And it is filled with a bunch of different genres. A lot of the ones that I just mentioned, kind of blues. There's a little bit of doo-wop in there, and a little bit of garage rock, which is the song we're going to be listening to now. It's called Didn't Bring It Up. It's one of my favorites from the record. There's a lot of great songs on this, and it's a real joyful record. And this song in particular, like I said, has a little bit of a garage rock feel, maybe a little bit of early Elvis Costello feel to it. A really, really great song. Really, really great album from Paul Seabar. The song we'll be listening to is called Didn't Bring It Up.
I checked the oil and the gutters are clear. The roof will hold for another year. I can't pretend that I know what you're missing. Nothing to smell, but I can hear that hissing. I didn't bring it up to bring you down. All I wanna do is stick around. Count me as the last to know what's lying underground. I didn't bring it up to bring you down. Bring you down to the wire that you know is gonna trip you down to the place where you know you don't wanna go.
Didn't Bring It Up by Paul Seabar. The next song we're looking at, the lyrics are very steeped in history, as the title might suggest, but it is a very poignant song at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. This is a new single from Milwaukee musician Ashley Altadonna, and the song is called Louis the 19th. Now, I'm going to put on my history hat here. I know so much about the French Revolution, so I'll see if I can muddle my way through it. Because this song is, it reminds me of a kind of They Might Be Giants song, where it just really lays out the history of a person or an era. So this is the story of Louis the 19th, the last Dauphin of France, who has been known over the years as having like the shortest reign in France. In the July Revolution of 1830, Louis's father, that was Charles X, was forced to abdicate the throne. And for a brief moment of time, if my history is correct, Louis became the king of France for about 20 minutes before he too abdicated the throne. Then it went to someone else. This has been, I guess, up for debate over the years whether this is legitimate, whether they can actually consider Louis the 19th the ruler of France for that short amount of time. But that's what this song is about. It's about this kind of brief kind of grasp at power, if you will. And it's a very fun song. Like I said, it kind of reminds me of a They Might Be Giants song, talking about, random artists or things or, historical figures. So it's great. Ashley Altadonna, she's great. She's been around for years and years, always puts out fantastic stuff. And this is the latest from her. It is called Louis the 19th.
Louis the 19th by Ashley Altadonna. I will say the next song, I personally know these folks pretty well, but hadn't realized that they have new music out. Iron Pizza, they are, I would call them a staple of Milwaukee's punk scene.
Absolutely. Iron Pizza's been around for years and years. They are a fantastic kind of punk, power punk, synth punk band. One of these bands that's, never been like this huge thing, but you're right, a staple. Like if you just randomly walk into, Bremen Cafe one night, Iron Pizza will probably be playing. And they've kind of come and gone over the years. They've broken up, then reformed, then put out some new music. And yes, they do have a new record out. It is called Serpo. And I hear it may be their final record as well. I don't know. It seems every time they get back together, it's their final record. But if it is, it's a great record. And the song we're going to be listening to is the first track from it. Is called Mixtape to Planet Serpo. And it's just, I don't know, just such a great little earworm. Like I said, very synth pop, synth punk, very lo-fi. And I don't know, it's just one of those songs that just gets in your head. I really, really like this song. It's a short EP. It's really great. It's the latest from Iron Pizza. It is Mixtape to Planet Serpo.
Mixtape to Planet Serpo by Iron Pizza. We are closing out this month's list with a very classic kind of punk sound. I don't think we've chatted about this band before. If I Had a Hi-Fi?
If I Had a Hi-Fi, yes. It's a palindrome. And If I Had a Hi-Fi have been around for, my goodness, about 25 years. They are another Milwaukee music staple. A great, terrific noise rock group that's been doing its thing for so long. And it feels like, I don't know, they're one of these groups that they've been around for a while, and as things get worse and worse, If I Had a Hi-Fi feels more relevant. I don't know. They've always been a band that's sang about just things falling apart and things being awful. And they, like I said, just become more and more relevant each year. They have a new EP out. It is called Pause in the Bacon Grease. And they are following that up with another EP later in November. That one will be called Night Vision Creeps. And the song we're going to be listening to from the first EP is called Everyone's a Doctor. And it is, like I said, kind of this perfect kind of snapshot of everything that is happening these days. Not super literal, but, there are lyrics in there about student loans and healthcare and January 6th and everyone being broke and just working remote and just everything being terrible. Like I said, they're the perfect band for this. It's a noisy, fun kind of song. It has a bit of a Devo feel, I would say, very in line with the de-evolution theme of Devo. This is, I think, If I Had a Hi-Fi at their most Devo. It's a great song. It's a great EP, and there'll be another EP in a month or so. So this is If I Had a Hi-Fi with Everyone's a Doctor.
A new disease is about to take hold. It's time to live stream a cure for your cold. We are the traveling medicine show. We used to drive to work, but now we're remote. We are the kayfabe marketing brains. A bottle of silver pulls the marks by the chains. We're more coast to coast than January 6th. There's static in our eyes, our reception's in the sticks. Our life is worth more than the oaks our bones, and our share is worth more than the student loans. While in the waiting room, you must not miss the jug band and ventriloquist. We control the beat, we release the tone.
Everyone's a Doctor by If I Had a Hi-Fi. Now, we are squarely in fall, although the weather is not always feeling like it. What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to winter. I'm looking forward to a winter break because fall is just as wacky and packed as summer is in Milwaukee. It's just, I thought I would get a break. I was like, oh, summer's over. All the festivals are done. No, everything just continues. There are more and more festivals, really great ones, big ones, plenty that are already in the rearview mirror, but plenty on the horizon. So I don't know. I love this time of year. I love the fall season, love Halloween, love doing all of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, yes, like I said, looking forward to a little bit of break. Not looking forward to the weather, but a little bit of break once winter arrives.
Very nice. Well, Matt Wild, as always, thank you for joining us here on Lake Effect.
Thank you for having me.
Matt Wild is the co-founder of Milwaukee Record. Every month he joins Lake Effect to talk about some of the best new music from local bands. At WUWM.com, you can find all of our previous conversations. And that wraps up today's show. Thanks so much for being here with us. I'm Joy Powers. If you missed any of Lake Effect this week, you can find all of our conversations at WUWM.com. If you'd like to take the show on the go, you can download the Lake Effect podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow on Lake Effect, our tour of Yemeni coffee shops takes us to Kamaria Coffee in Greenfield. Thanks so much for joining us right here on listener-supported 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.